Welcome back to AM Agenda. With me this morning, our panel of politicians from the Sky News Centre, Liberal Senator Mitch Fifield. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Kieran.
And from Adelaide, we're joined by the Green Senator, Sarah Hanson-Young. Senator Hanson-Young, thank you for your time. I want to start with you as well. It looks like ASIC and the government going to be announcing details as to how they're going to crack down on the banks and these exit fees. It looks like the Commonwealth Bank decision to almost double the Reserve Bank's official increase in rates last week has really created some momentum here. And it looks like the other banks have been spooked as well. Is that your sense of what we're seeing at the moment?
Well, look, if the reports in today's paper are correct, that there are movements within the three of the four major banks to start dropping exit fees and looking at how they can really start treating their customers more fairly, then it's a good thing. Of course it is. And what it really does is gets behind the legislation that the Greens already have in the Parliament. It's been in the lower house. It'll go to the upper house. And this legislation is doing exactly what people are calling for, banning exit fees on mortgages, ensuring that we have more fairness in the system and that there's some transparency in the way customers are being treated and the services that they get. One of the interesting things I thought over the last week's antics with the banks is after the Commonwealth put up their interest rates, usually when you see those hikes go up, you see a rally on the share market, but we haven't seen that with the Commonwealth Bank. So people, not just customers, but also shareholders are starting to think, hang on a minute, this isn't a very good look.
And Senator Fifield, it looks like, as Sarah mentioned there, that the banks, well, the reports today suggest that the banks might preempt the government's move in terms of the exit fees and scrap them. This would cost the big banks about $280 million a year. It would be a good PR move, though. It would be a bit of a surprise to see the banks do that, wouldn't it?
Well, Kieran, we've heard the government talk about making it easier for customers to transfer from banks for years now. Chris Bowen, the former Financial Services Minister, used to talk about it a lot, used to talk about the difficulty of exit fees, but the government did absolutely nothing. The only reason that the banks now, themselves, from reports today, are talking about voluntarily abolishing these exit fees is because Joe Hockey has put the focus on the banks, because Joe Hockey has been talking about the need for more competition, because Joe Hockey has been looking at things from the consumer's perspective. Initially, he was rubbished by the government and by some commentators, but I can tell you the banks would not be thinking about this option of abolishing the exit fees if it wasn't for what Joe Hockey has done.
Senator Fifield, though, he was rubbished by some in your own party as well. So a bit of egg on the face of some of your Liberal colleagues.
Well, I certainly wasn't aware of any of that happening.
Rubbish for taking up Greens policy, I think, is what happened, wasn't it, Kieran?
It does sound familiar.
Good policy. Good policy has 1,000 fathers and mothers, I think. But Kieran, what we've seen since this government has been in office is a treasurer who doesn't have the respect of the banks. Very shortly after this government won in 2007, one of the banks put up interest rates apart from a decision of the Reserve Bank. The first time that had happened in living memory. And Wayne Swan's response was very muted, and the banks thought, look, we've got the measure of this guy, we can pretty much do what we want, and sadly that's what we've seen.
Well, let's see what the Greens think. I mean, we've heard some noises that the Greens might back Joe Hockey's private members bill to crack down on price signalling. Senator Hanson-Young, you spoke about the Greens' own legislative initiatives, but what about the Hockey plan to crack down on price signalling, empower the ACCC? Is your sense that the Greens will back this importantly in the lower house as well?
Look, I think we really need to have some good constructive discussions between the Greens and the opposition and preferably the government as well. I mean, it seems pretty clear that even when people who are meant to be making money out of the interest rates, the shareholders of the big banks are saying, hang on a minute, this isn't fair, we need to do something better to make sure people like us, make sure people use our services and that we keep our customers happy. There is, I think there's good movement here for some tripartisan partisan support, or at least bipartisan support perhaps between the Greens and the opposition on getting these things that we're all talking about actually put into law. If we want to see better regulation in terms of price signalling, let's have a look at that legislation and see if we can get it through. If we really believe that exit fees shouldn't be attached to mortgages, well, let's make that law as well. Let's not just let it be at the goodwill of some banks who have found a conscience. What
do you make of the argument, though, from the government that the Greens and others should wait for the Swan response? The Treasurer says that he's been